Economists are being left behind in a net zero carbon emission world, writes Maria Slade in this week's Flipside. Maria, you caught up with former Reserve Bank Governor and current Infrastructure Commission Chair Alan Ballard recently. What did he have to say?
Yes, he gave a seminar up at Auckland University the other day, and it was interesting because it was a room full of economists, so a lot of pointy heads, and he was talking about global macroeconomic issues. But one point that he was asked about was whether economists are kind of being sidelined with the new focus these days on net zero carbon emissions and inequality and other sort of social factors such as that. And he said, well, actually, it's an issue. You know, he's finding, it, particularly in the infrastructure realm where he sits now, that cost-benefit analysis is a dirty word, as he said. Really? And he gets worried. He's seeing projects that are costed on, you know, things like carbon emissions rather than a good old-fashioned BCR. And he says that's concerning because you're going to get some perverse outcomes. And he cited the ill-fated cycle and pedestrian bridge across Auckland Harbour, which was going to cost $785 million, which we all knew was ridiculous. It had a cost-benefit analysis of something like 0.25, which means it's going to cost us money rather than give us any benefits. And you know, and he went on to say, you know, light rail. He'd like to see some more fully costed analysis of what light rail might do for Auckland, because it's a hugely expensive project, as we know. $15 billion is the sort of lower estimate, and that's a lot of dosh to spend on something that we're still not quite sure is going to deliver the benefits.
So do we have any benefit cost ratios or analysis on that project? Or?
There is one at the moment in the business case that was put out or released last year, and annoyingly only under the Official Information Act, which I think is ridiculous when the government's asking us to front up with somewhere between $15 and $30 billion for a project. The least they could do is let us know, you know, what their thinking is on it.
Does it stack up? Yeah.
Anyway, in this particular document, it says the BCR is 1.1. So It does stack up in terms of there is a benefit. But there are so many variables in there. There are other figures in the document that have been redacted, and it could end up that the cost is much higher than that. Treasury has even estimated it could be as much as $30 billion. So it's a bit of a finger in the wind exercise, and it also depends. I mean, one of the big benefits they're looking for is intensification of housing through the Auckland Isthmus. So it's anyone's guess whether that will actually happen. And of course, the debate is going on at the moment between the council and the government about the amount of intensification that should be allowed. So, you know, the cost-benefit analysis could end up being much worse. We just don't know. And, you know, this is the sort of thing Bollard's expressing concerns about.
And it seems like of that project specifically, there's not really many fans at all. Even the Greater Auckland blog is pretty opposed to it as well.
Yes, that's right. This idea that we're going to tunnel 12 kilometres under the Auckland Isthmus when we're still waiting for the City Rail thing, which is I
just want to train from Pukekohe, Maria. That's
yes, I know. Yes, well, we could tunnel to Pukekohe, it seems, as far as the current government is concerned. I mean, to tunnel 12 kilometres, just hugely expensive, and most people who are even fans of light rail say that's ridiculous. It's just bananas. You know, we could be spending that money on so many other projects around the city. You know, we are so public transport starved in certain areas. For example, the northwestern motorway just increasingly congested, heaps of housing going in out there, and we haven't even got a busway. So, you know, people are saying, Wayne Brown, new Mayor of Auckland, what are you going to do? You know, you are a key partner in this project. Are you going to stand up to the government and say, look, this needs revising? We've yet to find out. Wayne Brown's been quite long on rhetoric and short on details regarding that at the moment.
Has he given any sorts of hints? Or?
Well, he said on day one, you know, this is an ideological $30 billion tram. So it gives you an idea of his thinking.
Okay, yeah.
But whether he's actually going to do anything remains to be seen. He does have certain powers, as we have discussed before in this column. Auckland has an executive mayor, which means they have more powers than your average mayor, and they do have the ability to steer council in their own direction. So one would think if his rhetoric is anything to go by, he is going to start shirt-fronting central government over some of these key issues that are very unpopular, such as Three Waters, such as light rail. And to me, it's indicative. I mean, there's been a lot of debate as to whether the results of the local body elections are really indicative. But if you look at Auckland's chosen Wayne Brown, arguably centre-right, Wellington's chosen Tory whānau, Greens endorsed, I think to me that is illustrative of the growing divide between central Wellington and people in Auckland who are still feeling pretty bruised since COVID. So I think the Brown mayoralty is going to be a bit of a wilder ride than some MPs seem to think.
Well, hopefully you'll give a media interview soon and we can figure out what's actually next, right?
We can ask them for ourselves, exactly.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for your time, Maria.
Thank you.